Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat on the way in. So, once again, shout out to Shay Sade. So we have to start our intros off correctly. This is a part 2 to my stream earlier, individuality and community obligations, right? Um, I'm doing a part 2 because I want to show that I respect my subscribers, and I did not like what happened earlier with the headphone debacle and whatnot. That was like what 15 or so minutes, 10 minutes of like no sound, more than 10 minutes of no sound. So attempting to be more of a professional here. So we're going to be doing a part 2. Um, Shout out once again to Shay Sade, and so for those of you that caught part 1, I'm going to repeat myself a lot. I'm going to be saying a lot of the same things I said before, and that's okay. But this time, it won't take us about 20 minutes to get to the point, right? Well, hopefully not. So first, we are reviewing once again Shay Sade in her coverage of a Rebecca Stevens, and her speaking of being envious of the protection that she sees white men offer white women in corporate spaces, right? The title, if I'm not mistaken, of the article is why do black men, excuse me, why don't black men protect black women the way white men protect white women, right? And that is the title. So why this is important is, unlike what is often painted of and about the black manosphere and black men that have a particular worldview or a view of relationship and intimacy, particularly in relationship to black women. Much of what we speak of here is not just about the intimacy, right? It's not just about black men and black women and romance. Much of what we speak about here extends further than that, and the effects of black men and black women and the back and forth, the quote unquote gender war, and what that looks like and manifests to be, or evolves into, some might say devolves into, in the real world. And what you see here with Miss Rebecca Stevens is not her speaking about black men in an intimate sense, but her speaking about black men in a professional setting. And that black men, unlike white men, aren't protective of black women, unlike how white men are protective of white women in corporate settings. Now, this article is being published after the Me Too movement. This article is being published after Les Moonves, after Bill O'Reilly, right? After Harvey Weinstein. So the question is, are we to take Miss Rebecca Stevens and her anecdotal experience, which I am not discounting whether that happened to her or not, whether the events in that article happened to her or not. What I am saying is, are we to take this event, or these events, better yet, and say, this is how black men treat black women in corporate settings and professional environments? Now, we have studies and we have research that show that black men are the most progressive men in the country. They are the men that are more apt to back any initiative that is for the advancement of women writ large. They are actually arguably more progressive than white women in America. Their voting records, from my understanding in Congress, show this. And yet, Miss Rebecca Stevens tells us that she's envious of white women. Once again, after the Me Too movement, because white men are more protective than black men. And she doesn't even look at black men in that way. Not anymore. Not after her experiences. And she uses one story as an example, but she says black men, not just this black man. All right. We in the 21st century, because the internet and social media has democratized the town square and has given everyone a microphone if they so choose to use it, we have the ability now to give rebuttals to this type of rhetoric that is very old, this type of trope that is very old, that circulates both in and outside the black community. And that is that black men will do anything harmful to black women. One, because it's some type of sadistic thing in black men. Two, is because black men don't value black women because black women, well, they aren't white women. Three, because black men will trade black women in for white women in a heartbeat. Right? You see this trope being echoed in movies like Harriet with the character Bigger Long and what he was willing to do to have sexual access to white women. Remember, this was a dramatization of some real events of the great Harriet Tubman and her story. And this Bigger Long character, a black man, was shoehorned in. This is not real. He did not exist. This slave catcher, black male slave catcher, was shoehorned in this movie to emphasize that there are black men that to have sexual access to white women are willing to delete black women, are willing to do white men's bidding. Subsequently enough, that white man then has to save the black woman, Harriet Tubman, from the black man that he hired to chase her down in the first place. That white man has to delete the black man that he sent off on that mission in the first place to catch Harriet Tubman. Tying that to the story at hand, to the topic. Tropes like this are propagated throughout the black community, and many outside of the black community buy into this. And black people, namely black women, like Miss Rebecca Stevens, does the black community, black women, and black men, but even black women, she does them no favor by pushing this story. Now we know that Miss Rebecca Stevens, and yes, it's important to the story, is in relationship with a white man. Now, let's pause right there and let's think about this. A black woman in intimate relationship with a white man is speaking of how black men don't show up and protect black women in corporate spaces, in professional environments, that black women far outnumber black men in. And that we're seeing increasingly, as Miss Rebecca Stevens said herself, the open competition, Black women, some, are actively sabotaging Black boys from even being able to achieve that, let alone Black men. So we are to believe that some Black women will actively attempt to sabotage Black men and keeping them from achieving said positions to protect Black women in these corporate spaces. And then Black women get to double dip with the blame. So not only are Black boys and Black men undisciplined, not only are they not studious enough, right? Not only are they pampered and coddled in the Black community, these are all the stereotypes, right? Then for the ones that do make it past all of that, do overcome all those hurdles, all those men that do, Black men that overcome all those hurdles, they still are a detriment to Black women because they make Black women cry, as Miss Rebecca Stevens says she did, because they do not protect Black women, Be- and adding on to that, not only do they not protect Black women, they are more apt to elevate non-Black folks, namely white people, namely white women. If Miss Rebecca Stevens is to be believed, and we hear this often in the Black community, Black men are Black women's biggest hurdle. Black men are Black women's biggest threat. We actually do hear this often in the Black community. It is implied, it is suggested, it is outright said. Black men are the weakest link. Black men are the white supremacists of the Black community. Right? It is important that we emphasize that this narrative, this type of rhetoric, not only furthers the gap, right? The growing gap between Black men and Black women in their perspectives, but it doesn't actually elevate Black women. It doesn't get Black women kudo and cool points with non-Black folks, namely white people, namely white men in power. It does nothing but cause a resentment that then does actually produce what Miss Rebecca Stevens is saying in this article. The reason why we bring up the fact that this Black woman is married to a white man is to ask a accomplished, educated woman who, from what she's saying, spent some decades in this career field, is saying that she is being stifled by a Black man. And not only is she being stifled and held back by him, when she does have the ability and then actually does elevate, right? This Black man then goes about character assassinating her, engages in character assassination, better yet, and then proceeds to demean her to the point where she cries. Right? This sort of narrative has been pushed so much in the Black community that it does grow the enmity in the Black community. once again, it is important, and it's not just something to poke fun at. It is important that we stress, and Mr. Z is going to continue to emphasize this. A black woman whose Substack has some very questionable titles. A black woman who seems to have a bit of an inferiority complex in relationship to white women, and who puts the onus of that inferiority complex squarely on the lap of not white women, not white men, but black men, is telling us that she has been in professional environments for decades, and that what she sees as an obstacle to her upliftment are not other black women, are not non-black people of color, are not white men, are not white women, but black men. She goes on to say, not only are black men a detriment to black women, but that white men are not a detriment to white women. And she envies white women because white men protect them in corporate environments. So white men do not attempt to outcompete white women for jobs and promotions. White men do not undermine white women. White men do not put white women in compromising positions, and that is what the pun intended, by the way. White men do not practice the quote unquote good old boys network. White men do not participate in any of that harmful and bad behavior in relationship to white women, to the point where Miss Rebecca Stevens envies the protection that white men offer white women. What is frightening, and this is where we get into Mr. Z somewhat, well, further editorializing. Um, what is frightening about this is the narrative often of many professional black women who oftentimes have the ears of influential, powerful, well off, and connected white folks. They have the ears of philanthropists, they have the ears of politicians, they have the ears of lobbyists, they have the ears of NGOs. Black women who think like this, who feel like this about black people, black men, namely. Right? This this sort of narrative went unchecked, uninterrogated, not just for years, but for decades. This sort of narrative coming from black women levied onto black men has not gone unchecked and uninterrogated for years, no, for decades. It is a very ugly, toxic narrative that seeks to say that black men are one step worse than selfish. They value the company of white people, namely white women, over the betterment of black women. This is why there's a black manosphere. This is why there is a black manosphere. This is why black men's voices are important. This is why it's important not to tone police black men. This is why it is important that we allow for Black women to speak and speak freely. This is why social media is important and it democratizes the town square. Because we allow for people to speak with their own voice, speak and tell you what they really think, express to you what they really feel. Miss Rebecca Stevens emphasized her envy of white women, and that is the most important takeaway. Everything Miss Rebecca Stevens said was fluff. The important part was her envy of white women. A Black woman married to a white man who had a Black male boss was envious of white women and what she perceives white men do for white women, which once again is protect white women in corporate and professional settings, corporate and professional environments. Let's be very clear. From my understanding, this article is post Me Too. And excuse me. The reason why it's important that we emphasize why that this article is post Me Too is to say, regardless of the facts on the ground, the Rebecca Stevens of the world need to stick to a narrative. The way they feel is more important than literally what we have seen transpired across this planet over give or take the past 4 years, 5 years with Me Too. 3, 4 years with Me Too, with the Me Too movement. Once again, across this planet, because the Me Too movement was not just an American thing. The Me Too movement was started by a Black woman named Tarana Burke. And what we see here is that another Black woman, Miss Rebecca Stevens, is engaging in saying that, yeah, that sounds nice. But the real problem is Black men not protecting Black women the way white men protect white women in corporate America, right? The question then becomes, is Miss Rebecca Stevens just jealous or envious of white women writ large, not just black white men's protection of white women, right? White men's supposed protection of white women in corporate America. The question that I would pose to Miss Rebecca Stevens is, are you envious of white men's protection of white women in corporate settings? Or are you just envious of what you feel is white men's protection of white women overall in our society and on this planet? And then, if the answer is yes, do you not understand the position you put Black men in and how you might over romanticize white men and white men's capabilities? And what does that then mean about your relationship to Black men or lack thereof, and why there might not be a relationship? Do you not see how your view of Black men can be a hindrance to potentially being uplifted by said Black men? First. Secondly, the corporate environment is a space that is rife with competition, right? You said yourself that when you met him, he spoke to you and you thought the conversation went well until you heard that he asked other coworkers what their essentially dreams are in this space and that he would assist them. Huh. This extends past corporate America. We are using this conversation as an avatar to have a larger conversation about Black women and the narrative that they propagate about Black men in all sorts of ways, in all sorts of settings, in all sorts of environments, and how that is not only detrimental to Black men, but detrimental to the Black children that are attached to Black men and the Black women that are attached to Black men. That certain, right, boss girl feminists, certain aspirational Black women, right, see their biggest hindrance for true petite bourgeoisie status as not being white men, white women, maybe non-Black people of color. No, Black men. Black men are their biggest hindrance, right? So on that, we will pause with the seriousness. I definitely had to show that Mr. Z has the ability, the discipline, and this was my way also of apologizing for part one, right, of individuality and community obligation. I want to show that I can, we can go without any disturbances, without any laughter, quite frankly, and to show that I can show a level of seriousness that is needed for a professional, right? So, all right, with that, we're at the 28-minute mark, and I've been glancing at some of you guys' comments, and we'll start with Eric Deadman. We'll start with Trell Bentley. We got to start with the OG. And Trell Bentley says, "I'll take feelings for 200, Alex." It really is. It really is. Eric Deadman says, Z, I don't believe this story one bit. I have been in corporate America over 25 years. Do you know how few Black men are in middle management? They ain't many. This just sounds like a fictional story. It could be. It could be, right? But even if it is, I still wanted to hit this with a certain level of seriousness. I still wanted to entertain the narrative, even if it is, you know, um, a bunch of hogwash. It could be completely fabricated. You are absolutely correct. But I think this sentiment is still important to address. This sentiment that is coming from Black women, that is levied onto Black men, that Black men do not protect Black women, and not even in a literal physical sense, maybe not even in an emotional sense where you're harmful, or in a mental sense where your rhetoric or your speech or your verbiage or the your just your presence is offensive. No, I think, and I said this earlier, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think we are in the place where psychologically being in spaces with affluent or aspirational, connected white people, namely white women, I think, and I really mean this, I think that has a very damaging effect on some people of color, namely some black people, namely some black women. I think some black women just cannot be in spaces with similarly situated white women who pedigree or life or lifestyle or heritage, right, affords them a certain life, right? I don't think they can be, and to be more blunt, I don't think some black women can be around white women that got a few things. I think for them, it's a constant reminder that they are not white. And when I say white, read really upper middle class white women, read rich white women, read elite white women, which black women don't ever really come in contact with, but every once in a while they might come in contact with an upper middle class white woman. They might even work with a solidly middle class white woman. And that alone, to hear her stories and hear her life and hear her familial situation, drives them up the wall because all they could think of is how it's not fair, right? Trell responds to Eric by saying, "I've been in corporate and excuse me, in corporate, in public and private organizations. There were always more women than men, exactly, and all the black men did anything and everything to help anybody competent." Thank you, Trell. Better You responds, "Trell, that's facts. I've worked for Fortune 500 and 100 companies. It's very few of us, especially as you go up the hierarchy." Right? Bringing some levity to the situation, Jake says, "This sounds like a throwaway storyline for Insecure. Sounds like a Tyler Perry movie, like someone said. I don't know if they said in this comment or if it was the something I read earlier with part one. But yes, it definitely sounds like a script to pull at black women's heartstrings." Ishmael says, "AZ, I'm in public health, mid-level management. Black women are very adversarial in this space unless you're piping piping them or are some gender loving, same gender loving, excuse me." Huh. So, you know, I think this was a way more cogent, disciplined, um, to pat myself on the back, I freestyled this whole thing. Right? So that's Mr. Z chuckling for the first time. Look, y'all, it took me all of 35 minutes practically to chuckle, right? But I definitely, this was me testing myself, and this was me showing that once again I have the discipline. And I think this needed some seriousness because this sort of narrative is so damaging, not just to black men, because quite frankly, black women that are married to white men that have this type of feeling towards black men, like Miss Rebecca Stevens, they don't care how detrimental it is to black men. And they don't actually mean right by black women either, because the majority of black women are attached to black men. Actually, all black women are attached to black men, even the ones that aren't married to them. But the majority of black women have black brothers and fathers and uncles and nephews and grandsons that they love and care about. Now, how that love manifests, that's a different conversation. So, this damaging narrative that Miss Rebecca Stevens pushes also hurts black women. And what she is saying through word, whether she realizes it or not, is she does not care about black women either. Right? Detroit, you tempted me, right? You tempted me right now to respond, but I ain't. Right? Huh. So we'll continue to cover stories like this. Better you with the hogwash. I ain't heard that since I left the woods. Right? Huh. Lithium. I ain't gonna read it out loud, but yes, from what from last time I checked, I won't call her full that, but she definitely is a version from my understanding, right? Which I respect. To be honest with you, I respect people that say this is what I'm about and this is what I'm about and they show it. So if the young lady says she's gonna hold on to this and it's sacred to her until she's married, and if that marriage don't happen until 45 or 50, so be it. Right? So yeah, I won't give Nigerians an L for that one. No, I won't give Nigerians an L for that. Right? Now, has she said some questionable things in some of the other women that she's attached to that are Nigerian descent? Have they said some questionable things about ADOS folks? Right? I'm looking at you, Cynthia Revo. No, exactly. Stand on business. She's standing on business. Hey, she's the business, right? She's standing on business. She really is, right? Has she maybe said some questionable things? Has some of the black women, Nigerian descent or Nigerian, that live here in the U.S. now, have they said some questionable things? Yes, absolutely, right. But yeah, so shout out to y'all for coming through and listening to part two. It's not going to be that long. I wanted to show that I have this ability. Y'all have heard Serious Z before, but I just didn't like it. It didn't sit right with me what transpired earlier. Um, so I just want to respect y'all time, respect the super chats I got, respect, like I'm gonna try to work on this, production thing, y'all. Like seriously. Um, I've been saying forever I gotta get with compassionate. It's not compassionate, y'all. It's me. You know, it is not compassionate. Has sent me up an email. He has sent messages. Y'all have seen his live comments. It is not compassionate. It is me. Even Raj has got in contact with me and said, "Hey, get in contact with compassionate." He asking about you. It is shout out to compassionate and callous, right? The brother is doing good work in the background. It's not compassionate. It is me. I am. When y'all see Z be running and gunning in the car, I am running and gunning. I really am. Right. So yeah. So yeah, yo. So I definitely got to get this. I don't know if I got to get some super special antenna. But yeah, the headphone situation earlier, yeah, that really, I don't know why y'all know Mr. Z be having technical difficulties, but this one just rubbed me the wrong way, and I was like, I got to do a part two out of respect for my subscribers that ride with me. You got, the brothers like Trail and people Indigo, who I see as like big bros and Lion and whatnot, and then yeah, it just I don't know, it just bothered me. So yeah, and better you, who's like the little big bro or the big little bro, probably the big little bro is probably more accurate. So yeah, no, I definitely have to come to y'all with a part two so that we can like not wait 20 minutes to get to the point, right? As a matter of fact, I pretty much said everything I need to say in like 25 minutes today. So, part two. So, yeah. Trail said, "Hey, all the jokes write themselves." You see me? For real. It, and I made space for exactly what y'all are saying, which is like something about this story is not right, right? There's a, something about this story is not right. There's like a double entendre in there somewhere, um, right? And shout out to the Bunker TV, right in the shadows. What's going on, bro? Right. So, yeah, no, I made space for that, but I still think that this deserved a cogent, disciplined response because of the narrative. Like this trope, y'all, this trope of like, look, black men elevated white people, and and it's in my way and made me cry, and is chastising me, and has become my biggest enemy. It's not the white folks, it's the black man. He's my biggest obstacle. Like that trope, that right there, not only is it dangerous, it speaks to some black women willing to throw black men under the bus and anyone attached to black men for their upliftment. And it also, and what I think, making space for what y'all are saying even more, if it's a made up story, it only speaks to how much there are other black women who really want to hear stories of how horrible black men are to black women. Paris Milan and her whole femicide crusade, and for those of you that don't know, Paris Milan popularized the or repopularized the femicide narrative of over every corner is some black man predator preying on unsuspecting black woman, oftentimes, right, or more often than not, a underage black girl, right? Huh. So this type of narrative is not, it doesn't have no one that gets hurt by this. This narrative is very dangerous. And unfortunately, we have a number of black women, from old to young, that like to hear about how horrible black men are to black women. So even if Miss Rebecca Stevens made this story up, it speaks to how many black women want to hear this story and how many black women think and feel that fabricating stories of how black men have harmed black women, Rhoda, Carly Russell, and Carly Russell's story is a little bit different, but the length that she's willing to go to shame her, well, probably ex-boyfriend at this point, but yes, speak to that. Compassionate, you might want to rewind about a good 5, 6 minutes because I actually shout you out, right? Oh, Spain man. Yeah, yeah. If I'm thinking about what you're saying from the way I think you mean it, yes. Because there's a theory out there that that whole thing, it actually did happen, but it The Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. There is a theory out there that all of that is happening for natural gas off the coast, or some sort of resource that they find off the coast of where those people live, and the other people that have the big guns say we got to move them out. And how can we do that, quote unquote, justifiably? If you understand what I'm saying, you understand what I'm saying. I'm not, you know, I'm being vague on purpose. Huh. Good point, Ishmael. Carly avoided jail time, yet Juicy Smollett did not let that sink in for a minute, right? Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Spade, man. I agree. So on that note, y'all, we ain't gonna go too far. Thank y'all once again. Thank everybody for listening to part one, even with the BS in the beginning. Um, Thank you for listening to part two. I know I reiterated a bunch of things. Um, it was important that I get this out. This is the one I'm going to tag um, Shay Sade in, and shout out to Shay. Shay, thank you for the shout out. Um, yeah. So I'm going to probably do a few more of these more serious takes when it comes to stories like this, because I think it warrants it. I think when we're dealing with people like this who are slandering black men but couching it as responding to mistreatment from black men, I think it's important to hit that or respond to that with a certain level of seriousness, um, to emphasize how serious and dangerous that sort of narrative is, right? So yeah. And on that note, y'all, we will pause right there. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Y'all have a great, great rest of y'all night. Um, y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content, other non-Manosphere content. The Roger Report was Black Manosphere Show of the Week. The link for that is in my community tab. Um, y'all check that out if you missed it. Um, yeah, everyone. So y'all have a great rest of y'all night. Monday in the morning, back to work for those of you that actually have days off, and those of you, oh, what it would be like to have a weekend off and not have to call out or put it in, right? Not have to actually put in, oh, can I have Saturday and Sunday off? Oh, for those of you who work 5 days a week and it's actually Saturday and Sunday off, oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous y'all actually got Saturday and Sunday off. Oh, actual weekend. So y'all enjoy the rest of the other 2 hours and some odd that y'all have left before Monday, and y'all enjoy that. All right, y'all. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content, other non-Manosphere content. Wait, Mr. Z, what are you talking about? We'll pause right here. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Y'all go check out other Black Manosphere content, other non-Manosphere content, for the love of God. For those of us real life lore subscribers, real life lore got something out, so Mr. Z go check that out. Um, Loki, Loki. Thank you, Indigo. Exactly. Right. Oh, Cheryl said, but yeah, but I'm a salary slave. I go back and forth whether I believe that hourly or salary is better. Right. I'll go back and forth. Right. Because y'all don't get paid for overtime. Well, actually, it depends. Let me take that back. That's not true. That's not true. I think there's positions that we have for one of the cities that I work for where it's like salary, and I think like certain things don't get counted as whatever. Yeah, exactly. GC said depends on what you're doing. Exactly. Right. Yeah, but salary and hourly, yeah, yep. I go back and forth between whether I think one is better or not. I've been salary once in my life, right? Yeah, exactly. So yes, yeah. I have a couple of boys that I work with that and well actually we're friends and coworkers and yeah they're management and yep. And KW Don for those I forget there's people listening and not what I'm reading. KW Don says management doesn't get overtime. Yep. Yeah, better use says that salary has its perks when you can short the time you put in. Exactly. But on that note, y'all will not get me to hour. I see y'all. I see what y'all doing. I see what y'all doing. Look at you. But yeah, and Trail says I'm cool with my work, but I got a hustler's mindset. But on that note, y'all, we'll end it out here. Um, y'all enjoy your little other 2 hours and some change, right? GC said, "Damn, plane ain't work." All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your night. Z out. GC got me with that one.